All right, this is the Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I'm your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle, back once again with my co-host Brian Tallman. Just you and me this week, Brian, which is great. Just only you and I will be arguing instead of arguing with a third person.
Yeah, a two-way argument is always easier than a three-way argument.
Yes, and then the three ways, there's no disqualification, complicates things. So let's just keep it within the rules. But a lot to talk about coming off of a loaded weekend with two PLEs, both WWE and AEW. At Double or Nothing, you had King of the Ring, and lots of other news with some signings. And I thought that might be actually a good topic of conversation in kind of the context of all this is the differing recruitment strategies that you're seeing between AEW and WWE. And I think there's something to be said for either and both. So we'll get into that in just a moment. After our conversation, you're going to hear an interview I conducted some time ago with TNA's X Division champion, Mustafa Ali. This was the interview that was the cover story of our June issue of PWI. Super interesting guy. Just before we started recording, you mentioned, Brian, you spent a little time with him, and he's one of those guys that you're like, man, did somebody miss the boat with this? And maybe that's relevant to the conversation we're going to have. But yeah, there's a guy who it feels like he checks all the boxes.
Yeah, and the thing that I noticed, because I was at a recent Northeast Wrestling show where he was in the main event, and I was there, in the locker room hanging out with these guys, and he is one of the most gracious wrestlers that I've ever been around. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, he was willing to talk and work with, a lot of times when the WWE veterans and the people that have been on TV, when they show up at these indie shows, they're too cool for school and they don't want to talk to anybody, and they're in and they're out and they get their money. He was like sitting with the new guys and telling them things they could do to improve in a constructive way, but also not, being patronizing. Like, you could really tell that he was on another level, and everyone was listening to him. I mean, and he was but he wasn't arrogant. It was just like really very cool guy. Very cool guy.
Yeah, it's what's interesting about him is that, he's not a kid. I mean, he's there in his late 30s, I believe. So and a veteran in the sport, and a guy with a lot of experience. He's a former police officer. So I think that brings him a certain perspective. And no bones about it, he didn't have the most successful career in WWE, but clearly so much wisdom to impart.
That's what I was looking for, the word wisdom. Yes.
It reminds me of like the baseball player who had kind of a middling baseball career, but ends up being a great manager for a team,
Right. And I didn't expect that. And I don't know why. Maybe it's that whole stigma of, a certain generation of wrestlers, especially wrestlers that work a certain style. And you think, well, they're going to have this very flippant attitude about the business, and they're not going to, whatever that stereotype is. I don't know if it's like a Young Buck stereotype or something, but like, he's not that. He is absolutely not that. You could tell that he has been well schooled and that he listened when he was starting out, and now he's imparting it to other people.
Yeah, and I could very much see him. Not that it necessarily has to be the be all end all, but being in the position of a Cody Rhodes or a Drew, where a few years from now he's much more valuable to WWE than when he left. So yeah, stay tuned. A really fun conversation. Some of it's in the magazine, a lot of it is not. So definitely worth the listen. Our newest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated is the August issue. It is our Super Cards issue. This is another PWI tradition dating back more than 30 years, where we cover some of the biggest shows, and obviously none bigger than WrestleMania. And we've got our WrestleMania coverage from on the ground. It was in our backyard this year in Philadelphia, PWI's headquarters, basically. But I wanted to mention some of the other shows that are covered here. AEW Revolution, you got 16 Karat Gold, Windy City Riot, TNA Sacrifice, the Super 8 tournament, the ECW Super 8 tournament, which, again, a lot of history with PWI and Super 8. So tons and tons and tons of coverage in this magazine of all of those shows. You don't want to miss it. It is a collector's issue for sure. Pick it up at pwi-online.com. Whether you want to get just the one or subscribe. Obviously, you get the deeper savings if you subscribe. Longer subscribe, the deeper the savings. We've got combo packages now where you could get both the digital issue and the print issue. Best of both worlds. Digital one comes out a lot faster. Obviously, nothing like holding the magazine in your hand. And also while you're there, you can order some back issues that we have unearthed. You can get it all here in the magazine, and the place to go is PWI-online.com. Starting to get into the busy season. I chatted with Kevin a couple days ago, and already some PWI 500 talk. I think we're still a little bit ways away because we ended up moving the evaluation period. But
I don't want to think about it yet. It's too early. No.
Yeah. I suspect, and look, nothing's been decided, so this is premature. I don't think there's going to be as hard a time this year as there was last year.
You know what's funny though? You've had Bob Smith on here, and we've had him on, and I know you've been on his show, the Outdated Wrestling Hour, and it is wild to listen to him because, as longtime readers know, he started at PWI way back when, 30 years ago plus. And he and Stu basically concocted, Stu Sachs, the PWI 500, and he did the first couple, like he just wrote them himself.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. And this is in an era when there wasn't even an internet. So like especially for the indie guys, you're getting all these like 8x10s and videotapes sent in. And like, you have to really like scour you can't just kind of look up online who wrestled who. I mean, it is absolutely mind-boggling to me how he did that. What an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's interesting. On one hand, he does talk about it being a lot of work and kind of burning the midnight oil and all that stuff, but also he's a little blasé about it. That like, he did it, and,
right,
and it was doable. It was a lot different than what we're doing now. In that, he didn't have criteria. I don't think he was, nor could you possibly be counting up matches and that kind of stuff.
No, it was a different type of evaluation, especially I would say when it comes to the indie stuff. Like I think for the very high profile wrestlers in say WWF and WCW at the time, I think it wasn't that hard to kind of track their major wins and things. And PWI was getting all the arena reports, and I know that they were all reading the Observer too, and that helped. But still, just we get so lazy today with how many resources we have. I think about it when I write these books too, like what I would have to go through at the press of a button to have some of this information. To me still is just like jaw-dropping to just be like, what day did Gorilla Monsoon get inducted into the Ithaca Sports Hall of Fame? I'll just enter the search in newspapers.com. September 28th, 1973. Oh, cool. Here's a picture. Oh, cool.
Crazy.
And it's done in like 12 seconds. Amazing.
Yeah. For my column for the next magazine, it kind of involved King of the Ring, and so I wanted to like find that early King of the Ring history before they were on pay-per-view, when it was just used to be like essentially a house show tournament in England. And within seconds, I'm watching a local TV spot with Howard Finkel promoting, in Foxborough, Mass, and the winner will get a beautiful trophy. And watching like the TV spot, and I remember, I don't know if you ever did this, but maybe 25 years ago, sort of pre-YouTube, going with my wife, then girlfriend, to the Museum of TV and Radio in the city, and you'd go down to the basement, and it was sort of like before YouTube. If you wanted to watch like old television, and there was like a physical library where they would give you a book, like a catalog of what was available, and you'd say, an old I Love Lucy episode, and you'd have to fill in the number and give it to them, and then they would send you to a terminal, and they'd queue it all up, and it's sort of hilarious. And at the time, I was like, "God, this is so amazing! I've got access to all this old TV, and like all
done that
seconds away on your phone now."
Yeah, I used to. I went down there a bunch of times. I watched the entire Ed Sullivan episode with the Beatles on it. I wanted to see like who else was on it, what was the episode like. Watch the whole thing. This is like in the mid '90s. There would have been no other way to watch it. I had an uncle who was, he was an opera singer, and he used to go down there with his friends and look up like old singers who had been on television just to watch their performances and try to learn from it, because there was no other way to see it. Yeah.
I mean, they're still there. I don't know if they still.
I think they still offer those services,
really?
But there, because even today there still are things that you're not going to be able to find on the internet or on YouTube. There are things. But certainly, it's not as essential as it was back then. Definitely. Yeah.
An incredible service. Yeah. Anyway, as always, we're way off the path here.
Hey, that's what I do on my show, so I don't mind doing it.
Yeah. But anyhow, PWI-online.com. Go there. Let's talk some wrestling, and let's talk about the week in pay-per-views, PLEs, whatever we call them these days, and not a breakdown of everything, but I think we could hit on some big topics. Going to be diplomatic, and there's always the struggle with dealing with AEW and some of my frustrations with the company. A lot of news in the return of MJF. Mercedes' first match wins the title. A crazy anarchy in the arena match, and a Swerve title offense. Why don't we talk about anarchy in the arena? Let me get out of the way of what I'm not crazy about. And come on. I mean,
I wanted to start with things I liked, but we could do that. I was trying to be positive. I don't want to, there's so many shows that trash AEW. I don't want us to go down that road. But again, you have to ask yourself the question, why? Why is that happening? There's a reason.
Yes. Let me burn off my negative energy.
So go for it, Al. Say what you think.
Flamethrowers in wrestling. What is the role of the flamethrower in wrestling? And I didn't see it live, and I watched most of the show a day or two after, but it certainly came up on my social media right away, and that's like my first thing I see, like on Facebook, is the visual of Darby Allin just shooting a flamethrower at Jungle Boy, and immediately I'm like, oh,
horrifying, so scary.
What are they doing? And in the context of some of the other stuff that happened in that match, and even elsewhere on the show, you had the Adam Copeland match, and he seemed to get hurt in what was another match that, a lot of dangerous stuff going on. I thought it was worth a conversation about, I think that the worst reputation that a wrestling company can get is for being unsafe. And fair or unfair, right or wrong, I do worry that AEW is starting to develop that, and maybe has for a while now. And I'm not a pro wrestler, so I certainly won't claim to know how all the magic is done. And I know sometimes stuff that looks particularly dangerous is some of the safest stuff that you see, and sometimes the stuff that looks completely safe can be particularly dangerous. But I'm sorry, I don't think there's any place for, what a stupid thing to even have to say. I don't think there's any place for a flamethrower in pro wrestling. I see that, I instantly think, this is Bush League. This is, you see on social media, they call it mud wrestling and that
mud show, outlaw mud show.
Yes. And I sometimes think that's unfair. And then I see this and I think, well, this is exactly what feeds into that, and you can tell me till the cows come home that there were fire marshals on the scene, and that Jungle Boy was covered in whatever, fire retardant agent or what have you. There are fans nearby. The Young Bucks were nearby. These flames were within inches of everyone. These flames, pretty much from what I saw, got to Jack Perry's face.
Yes.
And beyond all that, you brought up before, the why, even assuming that this is done as safely as possible, in the context of a pro wrestling show, we're supposed to believe that he tried to set him on fire. Not that he was protected, but he just attacked another wrestler with a flamethrower with the goal of burning him to death. This is 2019 WWE, Vince McMahon, the worst of the worst fiend garbage. And that's what it is. It's garbage. And AEW is struggling. I don't think something like this helps them at all.
Right. And WWE has done things like this, and it was dumb when they did it too. Like you said, to that point, we're supposed to believe what we're watching. There's supposed to be an element of believability. So how is Darby Allin not in prison? You know what I mean? Or how is it not even part of the storyline that there's no ramifications? Oh, and the announcers, and I think Tony Schiavone's just, as usual, talking about how much fun he's having and how great everything is.
I know he hates it,
And you have to wonder at a certain level, and Taz and people have talked about how these guys are probably just really grinning and trying to bear it and get through this. But, but again, let's not forget, Taz comes from the world of ECW, where they use cheese graters, and where they, people in earlier times may have said, what place did the tables have in pro wrestling, putting people through tables, and ECW did light people on fire. And that was also extremely unsafe. God rest the soul of Terry Funk. But, the Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, was engulfed in flames at a certain very brief point. Now, it looked like, and this probably had something to do with how they planned it, it looked like Darby was mainly aiming at his legs, I'm not saying that this was like a wonderfully safe thing to do, but I think that was on purpose.
But
But there
then
was a moment. What's that?
But then Jack Perry bent over some and
Right.
was hitting him, and the flames either hit his face or came dangerously close to hitting his face.
There's a couple of thoughts I have about this. One is that it's at the point now where especially because of Perry being involved in a lot of these things, it almost feels like it feels very much like this weird, spiteful thing that they're doing because of the criticism that CM Punk had. It's like, now we're going to light a guy on fire. How do you like that? Like, it's very amateurish and very weirdly passive aggressive and childish. And the other thing, and I hate to do this because I'm not trying to dismiss anything, I'm not trying to get overly anxious and panicky, but when you think about like what place does a flamethrower have in wrestling, because it's this extraordinarily dangerous thing that could potentially kill somebody for no good reason, I think of Owen Hart. I think of what the heck was he doing, hanging from a harness at a wrestling show, being lowered from the ceiling. And yes, Sting did it all the time, and that was courting disaster too. And I thought the same thing here. Like, God forbid anything happens to him, the first thing anyone is going to be saying is, what the hell were they doing lighting somebody on fire at a wrestling show to begin with?
It's risk reward, right? I mean, and that's what I'm thinking. And I had the same Owen Hart thing because again, it is pro wrestling, and I get that the nature of the business, you're going to take risks and potentially life-threatening risks. I mean, that's just the reality of what we're dealing with. But somebody does have to make that calculation of, is this worth it? What are we getting? So if it is WrestleMania and you've got 80,000 people in the building and tens of millions watching around the world, and you're doing a Hell in the Cell spot, and you want to do the spot off the top of the cell through a table outside, I think it makes sense to figure out how we can do this and do it as safely as possible, and the single number one, I think, a factor in all these stuff beyond even the safety, obviously, of the wrestlers is the safety of the fans, right? You should do nothing that should endanger fans. I get nervous when you see wrestlers, and Brock Lesnar would do this all the time, willy-nilly throw chairs out into the dance, because I'm like, oh God, one day one of those things is going to miss, and it's going to hit a fan, and it's going to be bad. So all these things you have to be mindful of. But again, there's a difference. And look, I get Double Nothing. It's one of their big shows, but you ask yourself, what does this add to the product, to the match? Does it add to it? I'd argue that the flamethrower thing, and AEW's done this a lot, took something away from it, because yes, you can have the fans who are like, oh, wow, this is awesome. I think you get many more who roll their eyes or like, give me a break. And it reminds me, and this was far less dangerous and really not dangerous at all. But it was a John Moxley match. Maybe you remember what it was, where, super heated grudge match, and he pulls out a big piece of plywood with what was it? I think it was a barbed wire on it. Yeah. And, my thought was like, so this guy before the match, like he went to Home Depot and he bought, the plywood and put it in the back of his truck and then went home and, it's just stupid. It just,
well, they had the plywood with the mouse traps on it. Remember that?
That's probably what it was. Oh God, so stupid.
And that really just took me right out of it. And that was very early on in AEW. And I'm going like, what am I supposed to make of that? Somebody made that and put it under the ring for like, who did that? How did that happen? But we're the people that care about things like this. Some people are just like, don't ask questions like that. Just enjoy it. So I don't know. Maybe we don't know what we're talking about.
Right. I do think it speaks to like, positions of authority and who is in charge. And there's no way a flamethrower should have been greenlit for Double or Nothing. I don't care how many, and the people in charge with putting it out were the Young Bucks, that they're the ones who are standing by. I just think it looked horrible. Totally took me out of the match. I hate it.
And I had to laugh because I know in the past there have been wrestlers like DDP or another wrestlers who, as part of their gimmick or whatever, Colonel Parker, have a cigar. And I remember hearing that they were not allowed to light the cigar because of the fire marshal in the building because there was no smoking allowed for health reasons, but obviously one guy smoking in the ring is not a health issue, but it was a fire issue. And I'm thinking, okay, but you could bring out a friggin' flamethrower, but you can't light a cigar.
And people inevitably will bring up Inferno matches and Edge spearing Mick Foley through a table at WrestleMania, and that's, you know what, I don't love any of it. I think some of it's worked better than others. The Edge Foley spot absolutely worked again on the biggest stage of all wrestling, WrestleMania. I do think that there is a difference between those kind of situations where, and I don't know what the flamethrower was loaded with. I don't know if that is kerosene, or I'd like to think it wasn't gasoline if they're not that stupid, or lighter fluid or what have you. But I do think, just arming a wrestler with a flamethrower that can go in any different direction, and he's just kind of wildly shooting it, is on a different level, not recommended. And, thankfully, it seems like nobody got hurt, and that's fine. And the bad thing, not the bad thing about it, thankfully nobody got hurt, but it just, it lets them get away with it, versus like the Owen Hart thing that you mentioned. People have thought twice since then about lowering people to the ring on a rope because the worst case scenario happened. The worst case scenario could have happened with that flamethrower. That it didn't doesn't mean it's fine to do it again. I mean, I hope that they check that off. Let's never do this again.
And there's a weird pushback to that criticism that I think enables the behavior. Right. And I see it a lot online with people who dismiss the safety concerns and almost sort of dismiss or ridicule the fans who actually care about things like that, saying like, well, just enjoy the show, that kind of thing. And like, why are you so concerned with everyone's safety? And it just seems like they're missing the point that of like you'd feel with any other thing, that on a movie or anything else you wouldn't want on, especially if you're someone who follows the business, not just a fan, but someone who actually follows the business of pro wrestling like we do. Like, yeah, that is something that you're interested in. That is something you're concerned in. And when you take that flippant attitude, like, who cares about the safety? Just go for it. I think it enables this. I think, I hate to single him out, but he was the one in the middle of it. I think Darby Allin himself is part of that attitude. I've seen him online respond very negatively to people kind of very diplomatically expressing concern about his safety and things, not in attacking ways, but respond in a very kind of like, just, leave me the F alone kind of, and it's like, dude, you are going to regret this. And I'm not saying that with any pleasure, but use your head.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of these guys, and God bless him. And there've been a lot of them over the years. And to some extent, not that it's an admirable trait, but I do think it is sometimes a trait in people who are successful in whatever genre they're involved in. Just that sort of like, I don't care, I'll give anything for what I do, including my body, my life. And he's one of these guys who says, I'll die in the ring, and that's fine for him to be that way. That's where it takes a boss to say, no, you're not, to save the wrestler from the wrestler, and again, it's not, if this was an isolated incident, it'd be one thing, but we see it all the time in big ways and in little ways. And understanding that it is pro wrestling, and pro wrestling is a dangerous business. I think if you created a highlight reel of the most dangerous spots that, the 10, 20 most dangerous spots that WWE has put on over the last year, and AEW, I think it wouldn't even compare. I think AEW regularly takes so much more risks, and they kind of brag about it, and I get it, sort of their calling card, we're a more physical, more athletic style, but I see stuff where, again, like, what is the return on that? That was so remarkably dangerous, and you do see guys get injured in AEW a lot. I don't know if it's more than other companies, and they always say it's not ballet. I get it, but there are worthwhile risks, and there are risks that are not worthwhile. You saw Edge, hurt his leg jumping off the top of the cage.
Yeah, so frustrating. Now he's going to be gone for God knows how long with that. the older you get to, the longer it takes to bounce back from things.
Now I'll say that is a spot that you just as easily could have seen in WWE. It got messed up. I don't know why, but obviously, that wasn't the way it was supposed to go.
I think part of the thing with him is he left WWE, and the sense that I got was that they really had nothing for him anymore, and they probably wanted him to sort of like go into the background and not really be featured, and he really didn't want that anymore. And I think it may be time to start listening to his body, and I think even he has started to hint at that. It's like he's not a kid, he's I think he's like my age. I can't even imagine, like running around the block once.
Right.
Like, I don't know how in the world, he's not in his 20s anymore. And I think it may be time to make those concessions. Like, yes, that is a spot that they would have easily done in WWE, but I think it's very telling that they stopped wanting to have him do those spots in WWE.
Danielson's another one that you see all the time, and take unnecessary risks, because I get that they love it so much that he's another one I think who said, he doesn't care if he gets paralyzed out there. And I don't know if he said that, but I mean, certainly he's of that mindset where
he has said some troubling things lately that I have heard, thinking like, I thought that he knew better. And I don't know if it's just that he's drinking the Kool-Aid over there or what, but like,
he's an all-time great, right? And I get it. And that's what makes him Bryan Danielson. So I get it. And I get, and to an extent I respect it. That's where a Tony Khan or a Vince McMahon in his day or a Triple H has to say, no, we're not going to let you do that. It's not worth it. So anyhow, that's that on that. A couple other things. Mercedes first match, no surprise. We all know she could, there's never any question whether she could deliver a great match, and she can. And it was good. And I don't know that I've got that much more to say about it. I sort of laughed at the entrance because it's everything I've been critical of, where it's just sort of like gimmick piled on top of gimmick. When I saw like a drum line, and the drum line's got neon lights, and then the showgirls come out, and then she comes out, and the CEO, and she's got the glasses, and she's doing the dance, and she's got the busiest, ring gear ever, and her hair has got 38 different colors. And you mentioned DDP, but if you ever hear like Conrad Thompson talk about DDP in like the early 90s, where he had a bodyguard, and he had the diamond doll, and he had a cigar, and he had
a hat on a hat,
and he had hat, and he was homeless for a while, and it was just like it was just piling gimmick on top of gimmick. That's what it sort of feels like with Mercedes. It feels kind of undisciplined and messy.
Yes, I mean, the entrance was comical in how over the top it was. It almost, again, it's one of those things where it all feels very heelish, but I don't know if they realize that. Maybe they do now. But the thing is, but I have a lot of positive about that match. Honestly, I thought it nearly stole the show. I thought it was the best match on the show. In fact, I'll go so far as to say it's one of the best matches that I've ever seen from her, and she's had a lot of great matches, I thought. And part of that is Willow Nightingale too.
Yeah, she's great.
Willow Nightingale, when she first came on the scene there at AEW, I hadn't really followed her too much before, and I didn't really know what to make of her. I wasn't super impressed. Because it was that whole babyface, I'm just happy to be here, guys, kind of character. And I just remember thinking, I don't know if this is going to fly, but she is in the process of coming into her own. Like, she really is developing a presence on TV. She's getting really good at promos. It's wild watching somebody, do that week to week. It's very impressive. So I want to give her credit too. I thought the match was really solid, and I thought it was the first glimpse of like, and I'm being optimistic because I'm an optimistic guy, but it was the first sign of like, hey, maybe this won't be a total bust. Maybe there's hope. If they limit her mic time, if they keep things under control, if they focus on how she's one of the best, she can deliver great matches every time she goes out there. She can work well with others and things. The match gave me hope. Like, I'm not like, I know you said that, it was no surprise that she had a great match. To me, it kind of was, because I started thinking, well, does she still have it anymore? Like, she's lost so much of her aura. She spent a lot of time on the shelf. She hasn't been under the WWE, supervision anymore. Like, maybe she can't do it anymore either in the ring. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised. So I'm hoping that this is a sign of good things because, I thought it was really great.
Yeah. I mean, another reason to have been optimistic that she would be good in the ring is that clearly being good in the ring was a big priority for her after leaving WWE. So she goes to Japan and Stardom and AEW, and these are all places that, frankly, put more emphasis on work rate and in-ring quality from WWE. So clearly that's been somewhere that she's wanted to focus is her wrestling, and she was good to begin with. So I mean, if you start out at a level where, I said when she was still in WWE, she was on pace, I thought, for a while, for being the greatest of all time among women. I mean, I was that high on Sasha Banks for a while. And I think she could get back there, but I get, again, the recurring theme. I think somebody there needs to be a guiding hand, maybe more than they have been. MJF, the other thing I wanted to talk about, huge news. I mean, kind of burying the lead here. Returns, looks fantastic. I mean, never seen him look in such great shape. Cuts this promo, makes it clear he's sticking around. AEW. Cody now doesn't lay claim to the most ill.
Cody still is the winner. I'm sorry.
The tattoo. When I saw that, I was like, oh no.
At least he can hide it. The first thing I said, and people slaughtered me for this, but I said something like, it's very smart of MJF to make sure that tattoo is where it will be covered by his boot when he does go to WWE.
Yes. Yeah. But I don't know.
I did not have as high an opinion of that whole deal as you, to be honest.
No, I don't have
his return.
I'm not praising it. I think he looked good cosmetically. I thought he looked.
I don't even know if I would fully agree with that. Like really? I thought in terms of he looked very much in shape.
Yes. Different look, right? You don't have the scarf, all that. He sort of.
I don't know what was going on with the weird.
He's a bad girl now.
The fake tan was so overdone. His hair, I don't know. Somebody said he looked like Wolverine. I don't know if I'm trying to figure out if all this is on purpose. Like, he just looked disheveled. Mm-hmm. The kind of Triple H cosplay thing. I get what he's trying to do because Triple H had that big return at the Garden. I was there when he came back from the torn quad. I don't know. I feel like it was a cool moment because he's back and he's a great talent. He came out there and he gave the same kind of heel promo he's been giving for like 5 years. And I mean, he stopped doing it when he was this happy baby face with Adam Cole, and it was kind of cool to see him go back to it. But I don't want to start to get the sense that he's like a one-trick pony. And it's one thing to do the same promo over and over again, in the 80s when, but not now where it's like live TV every week and there's so much scrutiny on it, to still be giving be saying the same kinds of things and saying them as if you've never said them before. I don't think it was, I still think I need to see more from him. And I know, like, his look, I don't know what it is. I know he's been through a lot health-wise and things. To me, and this was even before he went away, he looks tired. He looks not totally well. I don't know how else to put it. Like facially, I look at him and I think, like, is this guy getting enough sleep? Like, what's happening here? He doesn't have... To me, he's lost so much since he was on that really high roll. Like, I really think, like, the peak for him is like, it was the CM Punk stuff, for example, where he was just incredible, untouchable, one of the best. And now I feel like he's trying to get back to where he was. Again, I still thought it was one of the highlights of the show, but I think I expected more. I don't know.
Bigger picture in terms of what this means for AEW and what this means for MJF, and to some extent what it means for WWE. This is now, and kudos to AEW. I mean, for snagging him, it's a real big coup, and similar to sort of how I felt about all these guys, Okada, Ospreay, Mercedes. I mean, there's definitely part of me that is disappointed that I won't get to see what that would look like in WWE, and maybe more so than those others. With Okada and Ospreay, there were the complications of them not living in the country, and WWE keeps a more full schedule than AEW. So that was something that AEW could always offer them that they couldn't. But you know, it just seems like MJF was a gimme in terms of like, this guy would be huge in WWE. And I don't know how hard they went after him. I do think now, after, and this is kind of the conversation I want to get into, after missing out on this many top free agent signings, and again, not knowing the ins and outs of how these negotiations went on, or even if they went on, did they even really seriously make a play for the guy? At some point, it's like, WWE, you got to get into the game with some of these guys.
Well, I have a thought on
MJF is one that in particular I felt like, come on, like how do you not go after this guy hard?
Here's the thing with him, and this is what also concerned me a little bit, is I know for a fact, I'm not going to get into too much, but I know for a fact that he very much wants to go over there, and he very much plans and hopes to go over there. And I think he would go over there if given the right opportunity. I'd go so far as to say that I believe he would even take a pay cut to go there, because he's thinking of the long term. So when I see this, I think, and I can't explain it, I'm not entirely sure why, I think they didn't really have a ton of interest in getting him. I don't necessarily know if I would agree with that on their part, but for whatever reason, my assumption in that scenario is that they didn't particularly want him very badly. Again, I don't know. I can't tell you why that would be, but.
Well, that's what you're saying. And that really is kind of the crux of I wanted to dig into it. And I was just sort of thinking about this morning, because initially going into this conversation, my thought was, sort of shame WWE for not being more aggressive. And there's still part of me with that. But I also do think that it speaks to these different strategies and mindsets. And some of it is just a reality of where the two companies are. And I just thought it was fascinating that on a week that you see, MJF return, and he's got the tattoo, and he's saying, I'm all in at AEW, and you see Will Ospreay earn a world title shot at the next pay-per-view, and Okada's featured prominently on the show. What are WWE's moves? Ethan Page shows up on NXT and is the next challenger. A guy who was in AEW, wasn't like a big player, but absolutely has an upside. And Jordan Grace also getting a title shot. So it's, and my thought immediately jumped to Moneyball. I don't know if you ever watched the movie, or like
I'm familiar with it.
Moneyball philosophy of baseball, and it's sort of like, we can pay one guy a ridiculous sum to get X many runs in ball games over the years, or we could pay a few guys a lot less and get essentially the same thing. And I think that's sort of WWE's approach to some of this. And part of it is that they have a developmental system. So I think they look at these free agents and they're sort of like, we're not looking at signing MJF. We're looking at creating MJF,
right.
And that's sort of the difference. So they get an Ethan Page, and it's sort of like, there's some name recognition there, but he's not going to be a huge difference maker. But what they're doing is evaluating, all right, what is the skill set here? What is this guy bringing to the table? He's great on the mic, right? I mean, he comes in there as one of their better talkers in all of NXT. Fine in the ring, young enough, can deliver a pro, can help elevate Trick Williams, right? He could a veteran for him to work with. So, and they're probably not paying him a whole lot of money, right? So that's a great return on investment. And they've done this with a lot of people. The other examples are Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, who, I don't think we're thought of as like these huge free agents, but in WWE, they play such a valuable role. They come in there and they can be part of the biggest storyline that you have right away, in the mix in your biggest storyline in the bloodline. Same for Jacob Fatu. That word is that they're bringing in Julia, who again, among a certain class of fans, they know who she is. She's not going to be a huge difference maker in terms of box office, but you look at the skill set, and probably didn't have to pay a fortune to bring her in. Jade Cargill, so they clearly have a different strategy.
Right, but this is because they also understand that so much of it is the presentation. So they don't get too swept up in the star power because, look, the best example is look at what has happened to so many people when they go to AEW. And you think, oh, wow, it's a huge star. Oh, my God, they're going to change everything. And they just become another person on the roster because so much of it is presentation and how the company promotes you and all this stuff, packages you, and they get that. So they don't get bamboozled by that idea. They know, like, we can take somebody and we can make them what we want them to be, or we might get somebody and then they turn out not to be what we thought they were because it was a lot of smoke and mirrors. But I think it's very telling when they want to, though, they will do it. Like they made sure they got Cody back, for example. They gave him everything he wanted. He looked like he just walked out of Daly's place and just walked into WrestleMania. Jade Cargill, they made sure they got her. So again, that makes me wonder, just briefly to get back to the MJF thing, like there had to be something there that made them not want to push that hard. I also think the other possibility, and this is I'm just totally brainstorming, is the one thing that might have made him say, you know what, I'm not going to do this right now, is they may have wanted to send him to NXT. And I think it's possible that maybe he couldn't see himself doing that. Maybe he expected, I want to walk right onto the main show. I'm MJF. You're not going to put me through. I'm not going to be, on NXT trying to work on my craft. I am MJF. I'm one of the best. And if he's thinking that in his head, whether he might be right to think that, I think that might have caused him to step back and go, I'm not going to be the guy that jumps Trick Williams on NXT. You know what I mean? It could have been that.
It's interesting, and MJF is such a unique case because he still is really young by every other measure. Like he is the kind of guy who should go through NXT. He's only been wrestling for less than 10 years. He's still in his mid-20s. Not that I'm saying he should have gone to NXT.
Yeah, but I think he's like a Jade Cargill. I don't think you want to put him through that.
I agree. I wouldn't have sent him through NXT. And I don't think they would. I mean, I think WWE would realize that maybe the backlash they would get from that is not worth it. Which is not to say that you don't send them into the developmental system for some more seasoning and to learn the WWE way in the Performance Center. Kind of
what they did with her. They just made sure it wasn't on TV. Right. It just wasn't on TV.
Yeah. But you're right. I think you would define him down by putting him in NXT. But it is fascinating, and you're right. I mean, look, they got, if you look at the signings of the two companies over the last few months, with the exception of like a CM Punk who's top tier, it's Tama Tonga, it's Tagaloa, it's Julia, it's apparently Jacob Fatu, it's Ethan Page. This is not like the A list, but all those people mean so, in the way that are going to be slotted will mean so much more. Trick Williams now has a credible a challenger for his title on a big show. Same with Roxanne Perez and Jordan Grace, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, and presumably Jacob Fatu are going to go into the company in the biggest storyline in the whole company. So again, sort of the Moneyball thing, that they're going to go in there playing a role, versus in Okada, who is out there showing off sneakers with tacks in them, just embarrassingly bad stuff. I think this was, maybe like the greatest wrestler in Japanese history, or in the mix, and that's what you're doing with him. And Adam Copeland, I keep on thinking to like those videos and pictures that you see of social media of him like playing to the crowd, except there's no crowd. It's and all these guys. I mean, clearly, like there are different philosophies. That said, again, I do think WWE has got to get into the game with some of this stuff. One of those people, I don't know if it was of all of those, if I could have picked one that WWE would have gone after hard, it would have been MJF.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he would have been, and maybe even more than that, Sasha Banks, because I think they could use a Sasha Banks right now. But on the topic of Ospreay, so he wins. He's getting his match, and he's getting a world title shot now at Forbidden Door. Kind of interesting, because the assumption would be that he'd be in that title picture for Wembley, and doesn't one that doesn't disqualify the other. I suppose he could win and defend at Wembley. Maybe he loses and he gets a rematch at Wembley. And any thoughts on where they go from here with Ospreay? And is that do you take it as a given that he should headline Wembley Stadium?
I mean, I think he should. Yeah, I think that would be a great move. Who knows with AEW? I mean, they're kind of doing the match now, which again, not in any way prevents them from putting him in the main event at Wembley. And if anything, this could just be, and probably is, the beginning of a story arc that will get him to Wembley.
Yeah.
Like, I can see him either winning the title from Strickland, which I really hope doesn't happen so soon, but I could see him doing that maybe at Forbidden Door and then Wembley becoming a rematch. Or I can see him somehow getting screwed or something, because we see all this stuff with the Don Callis family where he's clearly the square peg in that group, where he's a guy that like the fans love, and he's playing this decent guy who doesn't want to be a heel, and he's stuck in a heel faction. So you can see like something's brewing there. So maybe that's what it is, where like he comes up short in this opportunity through some reason of theirs. And then Wembley is the big stage where he finally gets it done and he becomes the champion. I think that would be a great moment to have him become the world champion at Wembley Stadium would be the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more meaningful than defending it there. And now the AEW does have more of these pay-per-views. I think it's fine to rematch a main event. I mean, that's the way it's been in wrestling for.
They should, but they always talked about how their policy, Tony Khan has said it, like no rematches. And I think that's so limiting. They did.
It forces you to turn the page, even if you got something that's really working.
You were at the first. Were you at the first Grand Slam in Queens? Okay, mm-hmm. One of the best matches I have ever seen live. A WrestleMania match. Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. Yeah. Unbelievable! What a moment that was. And they never did it again. Never paid it off. No winner. Boom.
Didn't they do it again?
Did they? Am I totally wrong here?
I feel like they might have.
Did they do it again? Okay, I'm wrong.
I don't know. I'm not sure myself. I feel like we saw that again. And it was, well, maybe not. I don't know. But no, they certainly didn't for a long time, if they have at all. So absolutely. Speaking of turning the page, let's talk WWE. Let's talk King of the Ring. Not a ton of news other than there's a new king and a new queen. I think it's interesting that they went the route, and I really like it, of promising the SummerSlam title shot. For years back in like the 90s and 2000s, it was sort of like, it wasn't ever official, but that was kind of the route. You'd crown the king and he was like sort of the next big threat to the world title. So I like them setting it up this way. I think Gunther's perfect choice. He was my pick to win the king, and he kind of fits the mold. So now I guess we're getting Cody and Gunther at SummerSlam, which I think is a great match. I mean, a worthwhile SummerSlam main event. That said, a little bit of a concern is, and I think it is the sort of hangover of WrestleMania, coming off of the biggest storyline in wrestling that took years to pay off. Cody and Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, sort of everything that Cody's done after that. It's sort of hard to make it feel that special, and that was the case with AJ in France, and now Logan. And these are good matches and worthy opponents. I don't think anybody seriously has thought that he's in danger of losing the title. And I sort of worry that'll be the same thing with Gunther. So I do think that they need to up the ante here. I mean, this is all to say they got to find something to really make that match feel special and maybe personal. And I don't know that maybe you don't put the title on Gunther.
No, I don't think they should put it on Gunther. I think this is a great opportunity because here's the thing. Like with AJ Styles, and I would say even with Logan Paul, you never really felt like he could lose it, especially the giveaway with Logan Paul was when he said, well, my title's not going to be on the line, just yours. Well, then you know what's happening. I think this needs to be the match where you very much get people to think he is going down.
Yes.
He's losing it, and then he doesn't. Like that's what this match should be. Like the really truly great obstacle where it's a real serious threat and he beats it anyway. And I think, because last year when I was saying that he should have won at WrestleMania that year and become the champion, my assumption automatically was that his next top challenger would have been Gunther because they were the last two in the Rumble in 2023. And I think you definitely want to play that up. I think they need to go back and talk about that and show it. They were the last two in there. And it seemed like Gunther was going to be positioned as this threat to Cody. And they could sort of like pick that up. But I think he is the perfect guy to be that, because they also started talking about this. And this is something to talk more about. The last time that the King of the Ring winner was granted an automatic SummerSlam title shot, it was Brock Lesnar in 2002, and he steamrolled over The Rock. That was like,
I think that is the model. Yeah, I mean, I think to build them up.
So you have to get people thinking that that's going to happen again, and then it doesn't. You know what I mean?
But then what does? I mean, that's the thing is, are you going to beat Gunther? You could, or you could, they don't go to this well very often. So maybe you could do some kind of DQ thing. But I get your point is less about the result of the match and more what you get fans to believe. And I think that's the challenge is making it more than just, and clearly Gunther's got more credibility than even a Logan Paul or an AJ Styles. But, I keep on thinking too, King Kong Bundy and Hulk Hogan, Earthquake and Hulk Hogan. I think maybe this calls for like the injury angle. It's not to say I think Gunther should beat the crap out of Cody.
Yes.
Scratcher him out between now and SummerSlam. We're going to make the little bracelets for Cody that we're going to send to him in the hospital. I mean,
friendship
really sympathy on him and make Gunther out to be a monster. It'd be a great time, and I don't know what there is between now and then. It'd be a great time to get Brock Lesnar back and have Gunther beat him.
Gunther beat him. You could do that because think about it now. Still to this day, because I was a little concerned that I did not want Randy Orton to beat him in that match and win King of the Ring, even though that was an outstanding match, by the way. I didn't want to see that because I just thought, well, Gunther just lost at Mania. Like we don't want to really start hurting this guy where he has that aura of invincibility. And so still the only match he's lost in the last 2 years or something was that one Sami Zayn match at Mania. And if you noticed at King of the Ring, I felt a little bad for Sami in a way. You had Michael Cole basically saying, no, that was a total fluke. Like he actually said that on commentary. He was like, nothing against Sami, but I still think that match really was a fluke. So they're basically trying to say like, yeah, he shouldn't have lost that one anyway. Like he just had a bad day. He just wasn't feeling good. He's still pretty unbeatable. Like, I think there's a reason for saying all that. Like, you really want people to believe, like, still, this guy cannot be beat. He got beat one time. This one guy got lucky. It's not going to happen again,
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it was right to pull him off TV for a while, and kind of rebuild that aura. He absolutely should have won the King of the Ring. If anything, I would have had his win against Randy be more decisive. And I don't think some of that was planned, but the shoulder wasn't quite down, and it wasn't like
that was a
fluky pin, but it also wasn't like the dominant, this guy laid you out sort of. I mean, kind of the Randy Orton Brock Lesnar model from years ago where Brock just destroyed Randy. I think that's kind of has to be the treatment of Gunther, because that is the character. He should be the unstoppable threat. How is Cody going to get past this guy? Sort of thing. So I hope they do that. Any thoughts on Nia Jax winning the Queen of the Ring and where you go from here?
I'm a little surprised by that because she was recently in the title picture. She recently got a couple of title shots, lost. She got a great push. I'm not sure why they'd want to do it again. I'm assuming her and Bayley.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought this would have been a good opportunity to really continue to build Lyra Valkyria as something special. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. It seemed that was a surprising decision. Even the finish itself seemed to come out of nowhere. She just all of a sudden just sat on her and pinned her really relatively quickly. I think the match was like under 10 minutes long. I don't know. It was a little bit of a confusing move there, honestly.
Maybe kind of the same strategy. I mean, make her this mountain that Bailey's got to climb. The sympathetic baby face against this monster giant heel. But I do think, I feel like, and this is no like slight against her. She seems like a perfectly nice woman, but they've tried Nia Jax for so long, right? Like going back years and years and years, and I get it. She's so different than everyone else. She's got credibility that the others don't. So I get why you'd want to keep on going to that well, but at some point, I do think you have to fold and say, like, look, she's just not that person. So
look, it is a good time to be related to or friends with The Rock. That's all I'll say. Very good time in wrestling for that.
On the topic of women WWE, Becky Lynch loses the title, and to Liv, who I think is doing great work. I'm happy to see her get a big push, and it looks like we might not see Becky for a while. And her contract is up. Talk about free agents. It sounds like she's about to become one. I don't seriously think she's going to go anywhere else. But it does sound like, maybe not quite retirement, but maybe, and maybe we don't see her for a long time. And I think it's great, not for WWE, because I think she's fantastic, but, she should have zero regrets. She's literally done everything there is to do. Maybe the most successful woman in WWE history, and has got a little kid at home, and I'm sure all the money she could ever spend, and all kinds of prospects. She's now a best-selling author like yourself, and I'm sure there's movie offers and what have you. So it feels like as good a time as any to kind of gracefully bow out.
Yeah, and I've been reading about it and things that have been reported in the Observer and elsewhere. It seems to me like the scenario was that the offer they were giving to her was not what she was hoping for. I don't think that she seems to be headed to AEW or anything like that. I think this is just a situation, like you said, of, you know what, I'm not going to take this deal. I feel like I'm better than this. So I'm just going to kind of like maybe just walk away and figure something out and maybe come back at some point. I'm wondering, although, she's a lot younger, but it almost feels like she hit that brick wall that Adam Copeland hit, where they were like, where it's like you get a deal and you're like, I'm not doing that. I'm better than that. I can do more. And, I'd rather not take that deal. And instead of what he did, she's going to just choose to just enjoy her life and raise her kid and enjoy the money she's made, at least for now. But I think this is a scenario where, like, if she had the mindset of Adam Copeland, she would go to AEW right now, because I think it's a very similar thing that happened, which is like, they're like, well, this is all we've got for you right now. Like, we feel like this has run its course and we want you to maybe sort of not be as prominent as you were, or we're not going to pay you as much as you'd been getting. And I think she just said, nope, not for me.
Maybe an even a better parallel is Mercedes, right? Because the word with her was that she was demanding, top star money, and there was an offer, but it wasn't that. And so she went elsewhere. And so, not knowing what those figures are or what their demands are, I would be a little concerned if there was any kind of different treatment of the women, because in those two people, you could certainly make the argument that they are as valuable to the company as any men, right? Short of maybe you want to say like a Roman Reigns or something like that, or Cody Rhodes, but certainly, in the universe of a Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens or whoever, name your, or Randy Orton, absolutely. These are absolutely top people. That said, there is a reality that Becky's not burning as hot as she was.
No, I was going to say that.
She didn't mean as much. Yeah.
I don't think she ever got back to where she was when she came back. She definitely seemed to have lost some steps. There was just something missing there. I think that, it's a tough bar to hit, honestly, because at one point, there was a year there, a year and a half, maybe more, where she was the most over wrestler in the entire company. And I have to say, I think that's the only time that's ever happened in the history of pro wrestling. That didn't even happen for China, where you are unequivocally, you have a woman as the top star in your company. That was unparalleled, but it did not last long. And I think maybe they just felt like she wasn't worth as much. I mean, I know it's being very harsh to say, and I don't mean to say it in that way. Maybe there's a better way to say it, but I think that they felt like she had come down and she didn't want to accept that maybe. And then she just said, in fact, I almost think that maybe even the deal when she initially came back was not something that thrilled her, but she did it because she just wanted to be there, wanted to be contributing, and maybe just got tired of that and said, I don't want to do more of that.
Yeah, and this doesn't have to be anything that's all that acrimonious. I mean, I think, this is business, and I think WWE could think, look, we love you, but we think you're worth X. She can say, well, I love you right back, but I think I'm worth Y. All right, we're going to shake hands and disagree and go our separate ways, and that's fine, and maybe there's a little truth in both of it. And look, Becky's not going to be what she was in 2019, in part because she is 5 years older now, and there's a whole new generation of women who have come in behind her. And so that's why I was really happy to see her put over Liv the way she did. I mean, like that this is the way it should be, and you make somebody on your way out kind of thing. Yeah. And there is this, whether it's Lyra Valkyria or Tiffany, who I think is fantastic. There is a queue of women ready to come up, and NXT's done a really good job with that. Roxanne Perez. I mean, I've been got something coming up with Roxanne Perez in the magazine, so I've been studying up on her, and super impressive. And she's 23 years old. Incredible. So. I mean, Becky's getting up there, and that's the reality of the business is like you age quickly.
She has been, I mean, people don't realize how long she's been in the business because she started as a teenager. I think she's been wrestling now for about, I want to say 22 years, something like that.
Yeah. And she's not 40 yet. And what could she be? I'm sure I could look it up real quick, but I mean, I'm guessing she's 36, 37, something like that. So. Yeah. Anyhow, anything else you wanted to cover from the weekend? I'm trying to think.
Well, what about Sexy Red, Al? You're not a big Sexy Red fan?
Who is Sexy Red? She literally came on TV, and I liked her well enough. I thought she was like likable, but I'm like, is this a pop culture reference that I don't get?
She is the next kind of up and coming, big kind of in the mold of like Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Ice Spice, and now it's Sexy Red with almost none of the talent of any of those people, but people seem to really like her.
A musician?
What's that?
Is she just a musician, or is she talking about wrestling? Is the idea that she's going to wrestle?
I don't think she's going to wrestle. I mean, she's, but they're saying they want to use her more. That she was very easy to work with, they said, and very enthusiastic. And
I've never seen her before, and I liked her well enough. I mean,
she's one of those people. She has a big following outside wrestling. I know, Al. Not everything with me is Frank Sinatra, believe it or not. My wife keeps me very cool, so I knew who she was. I'm not the hugest fan of her. I mean, I love Cardi B. I love Megan Thee Stallion. I'm not a big fan of her as an artist, but I think
she's bad tattoos. Is that a tattoo?
I don't know. I've never seen that on her face before. Like, I'm familiar with her. It's either a tattoo she just got or it's a decal or whatever. I mean, she looked, like they just found her in front of a convenience store somewhere and put her on TV. But people seem to love her, and it to me, it's this weird thing. I was talking to my wife about it because, as crazy as it sounds, she's not someone at the level of like a Bad Bunny or like a Logan Paul. But when we talk about people like that, and wrestling fans are like, who is this guy? And then you go, well, this guy is more famous than everybody in WWE put together. She also is someone who has a strong mainstream presence where you go, it's so fascinating to me that all these celebrities who are very famous are drawn to work with WWE, even at a time when WWE is not even at their level. Because WWE has that cultural cachet, and it has a lot of fans who want to be a part of it because they're fans.
It's cool.
It is. It's a really interesting phenomenon. Like like Cardi B herself has tweeted about watching, she's occasionally like live tweeted WWE, and I don't think they're paying her to do this. Like she said, she has commented on things on the show just randomly. Somebody who could, almost buy and sell the company at this point. It's wild to see. I think it's a very cool thing to see, honestly.
Yeah. Also, I mean, sort of related, interesting having Floyd Mayweather there for Swerve. That's a great look for Swerve. Even though Floyd isn't what he used to be, I don't think he's got the cultural relevancy that he did 10 years ago.
I guess not. I almost fell out of my chair when I saw him because it seemed like such an afterthought. I was like, wait a minute, is that Floyd Mayweather? Like there wasn't even a graphic. I'm going, that's like the greatest boxer of like the last 20 years.
Yeah, at least once upon a time he was as A-list as you get. But this reminds me of another point that I didn't want to bring up about the King of the Ring and just the evolution of the Saudi show. And now we've got whatever it's been, about 5 years of these shows. And that first year, maybe the first couple of years, there was this uneasiness about all of them. And they were all sort of gross, frankly. And a lot of political undertones that I won't get into too much. But beyond that, what I remember about those first shows was like, maybe some of this is my imagination, but I remember like couches in the front row and like, princes, a royalty in the front row, and almost like that WrestleMania 4 vibe where like these aren't fans in here, and it was like people observing and sort of not that interested, and it did not make for good shows. And you fast forward, and now these shows are very much WWE shows, and I think it's fascinating what's happened culturally there. That these fans are singing along with every word to Cody's song, and they're this is awesome chants. It's like it's like an American crowd somehow, and clearly has been a shift culturally over there. I don't know how much WWE is just kind of riding that wave. I don't know how much maybe they helped influence some of it. I don't want to give them too much credit, but remember that women couldn't be on those shows for the first few years, and now they still got to have the wetsuits. And
Becky Lynch came out dressed like the Monopoly man, and immediately see that and go, "Hey, they must be in Saudi Arabia." Okay,
but there's definitely been a shift, and it's made for better shows when they go over there. And one thing is like you don't need to have like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan in each corner, or Goldberg or Undertaker coming out of retirement. They're just WWE shows now, and the fans are into them there.
Right. They've integrated the shows more into the ongoing WWE, storylines and things. It used to feel like they were just in their own universe, because I think, like you said, whoever was, I'm assuming it was the Saudi government or whatever, whoever it was very out of touch. And the things they wanted, it's like you get the sense that they hadn't watched wrestling in 20 years. So they were like, well, wouldn't it be great if we had Goldberg? Whatever happened to him? Like, what about Shawn Michaels?
Warrior? They asked for I think there's stories.
They asked for Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. They did. And that's how that Hogan Flair team match happened, because they were like, we can't give you Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. They're in their 70s or whatever it is. They're almost 70. What if they were just in the corner, But now it seems like, they're willing to allow, I really feel they're willing to allow WWE to put on the show they want to put on more than they were before. I think a lot of what you see, like you're talking about the crowd, I'm a little skeptical. I think a lot of that is optics and the sense that they really want to create a different appearance. Because if you notice on the most recent show here, the whole front row was women, and we pointed out that in the past how it looked like there were no women there, or the ones who were there, they looked like they were almost like being held hostage by the men that had chaperoned them there. I hate to say, but they made it out like, okay, look, they have all, not just women, but young women all in the front row. A lot of them had their heads uncovered. I'm assuming there might be an age limit on that. I don't know what, but it really felt like they were consciously trying to show like, look, we're changing. This isn't the way it used to be. Like, we're getting a little more accepting. The women don't have to just like wear pajamas when they wrestle anymore. Now they can wear skin tight outfits as long as they're covered from head to toe. Like, there is a sense that things are progressing and changing. Yeah. And I remember in the beginning, right? Wasn't it? God, I mean, in the beginning, they wouldn't allow Sami Zayn to come, right? Yeah. I think, wasn't there even, I don't know if this is true or not, but wasn't there even a rumor that they didn't want Paul Heyman there because he was Jewish?
Yeah, that's absolutely was. I don't know how true it was, but that was certainly the word. And they would run like these propaganda videos in the middle of the show, talking about how progressive. It was sort of like
Yeah.
these WWE like apology videos that
It was
like
like 1984 type stuff.
yeah, yeah, and you know, a lot of that still exists, and I certainly would understand people who don't want to watch these shows or put off by the shows, or even. And I don't know if there's still any holdover wrestlers who don't go to them. I don't sense that. I guess Cena hasn't been there yet, but
Cena always would refuse, and I remember Daniel Bryan would refuse
right.
to go
But
too.
neither of those really a factor now. Cena's almost never around anyway, and
Right.
working in the other company. So I don't know if there's that Sammy goes on the shows, and I think it's a great look when they send Sammy out there
Mhm.
and he's speaking in their language and they're going crazy for him. So they really have turned a corner with these Saudi shows. And just in terms of wrestling shows, I don't like dread them the way I used to, where it's like, oh, this is going to be so unpleasant to watch. They're just good shows. If it's a good show, and if it's a bad show, it's a bad show. But they really now have found their place in WWE. So and now they're getting UFC over there. So yeah, I get that they're huge money makers. So yeah. Anyhow, all right. So we're at whatever over an hour here. Going to throw to Mustafa in a moment. Brian, anything you want to share about the progress with the book or anything else going on?
The book is rolling along. I'm getting into the later chapters. It's the Gorilla Monsoon biography, Irresistible Force. I think I've mentioned it before, but the official publication date is now October 2025. So we still have a ways to go. But I'm going to be happy when it's done, when I'm done writing it by the end of the summer. The other thing I want to mention too, I mentioned it last time, but I started this Patreon, the Shut Up and Wrestle Patreon, where I do audio commentaries for classic wrestling shows. And I just put the first subscriber one up, which is a commentary for the January 23rd, 1984 Madison Square Garden show where Hulk Hogan defeats the Iron Sheik and becomes World Wrestling Federation champion. So I do an entire commentary where you can watch it on Peacock and listen to me kind of talking you through the show. It's it's patreon.com/shutupandwrestle. So it's something I'm trying to get off the ground, get started. Some people have subscribed now, always trying to build more. So
what else was on that card?
So they also had see, now you're putting me on the damn spot here.
For that one match, you almost remember it as like a one
right.
match show.
There was a 20-minute draw between Mr. Fuji and Tiger Chung Lee and the Invaders, okay, including Jose Gonzalez. Classic example of like, we're trying to fill time. This is what we do.
Andre was on that show, right? Because I remember Andre celebrating with Hulk backstage.
Yeah, Andre was there. Putski was there because he's celebrating backstage. Ivan Putski, Rocky Johnson. God, that's ridiculous that I can't remember another. There was that match, the Invaders. I remember that match because I'm going, how long is this match going to go? But who did Andre wrestle? I think you know what it was? The Hogan match didn't go on last because back then at the Garden, as you remember, you probably remember, the Garden didn't put the main event on last.
Oh yeah, right. So they could get him out before.
Right, or so they would build the storyline to the next month's main event. They would announce it later.
The Fink would come out, yes.
Howard Finkel would say, next month, and it would be based off what had happened.
But I never knew that. I never knew that Hogan didn't close that show.
No, he didn't. The main event was the Andre thing. I think it was Andre and Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson against three big heels that I can't remember. But that's what the close.
Was Stud on that show?
Maybe. I think it was, but they would do that. So they would close it with some type of big giant 6-man tag or whatever. So you still didn't feel like you were getting cheated. Here, I'm looking at it now. They were against the Wild Samoans.
Oh, okay.
So it was Andre, Rocky Johnson, and Tony Atlas against Afa, Sika, and Samu, who was like the third Wild Samoan at the time. Paul Orndorff versus Salvatore Bellomo. You wouldn't want to miss that one. Sergeant Slaughter versus Ivan Putski. That was a big match because it was one of the last big matches where Slaughter was a heel, where they hadn't turned him babyface yet with the Iron Sheik angle. So
yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I wonder if little Roman Reigns was backstage for that one.
I don't think he was born yet.
Was he not?
No, he was born in 85.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I've seen those pictures of Hogan with the what looks like maybe a 5-year-old Roman Reigns and with Sika, and I thought
Yeah.
that Sika's run, which was the singles run, which was like what 86, 87.
Yeah, I think that was from the singles run. He came back in like 87 as a
Yeah,
singles. So I think Roman would maybe been more like 2 or 3 in
yeah,
that picture. I've seen that picture too. It's possible that Randy Orton might have been backstage at that show in 84 because he would have been like 5 years old. And I think Orton is on that card because that was back when they first brought Piper in. For whatever reason, he might have been hurt. Piper was initially a manager for
yeah.
like a couple of months. He was managing people like Orndorff and Dr. D, David Schultz, and Cowboy Bob Orton. He was managing those guys very weirdly. So I know Orton was on that card, so maybe Randy was there.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yep.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Right now, let's go to my interview conducted some time ago with, he wasn't then, but he is now, the reigning TNA X Division champion, Mustafa Ali.
One of my big takeaways right away from watching that first video that you put out was this guy's been thinking about this for a long time because it was such a sort of fully formed idea and concept and obviously the high production value that this is not somebody who is just reacting. He had this in mind for a while. So is that the case? I mean, how long had that vision been kind of brewing in your head?
So the vision was brewing in my head since actually the cruiserweight divisions on the 205 Live days, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple instances throughout WWE where you would see kind of like, you know, examples of this character or, you know, pitches to this character or like maybe one promo would pop up. But eventually it would get shut down because the general logic with WWE is they don't do anything political or religious, you know? Now that the character is kind of up and running, I think people can see that there's nothing political about it. It's just the nuances of a politician, campaigns, protests, being voted, you know, etc., speeches. I'm not saying anything political, you know, and I feel that's where the disconnect was with creative and myself. So I've been thinking about this concept for years.
Yeah.
The video you are talking about, I'm very, 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 very proud of it because basically it was a very well thought of marketing campaign. I was a marketing coordinator initially before becoming a police officer, before becoming a WWE superstar. But I've always had the sense of marketing, and we all know what, you know, typically happens when someone leaves WWE. They have a prison break style, you know, video. And to me, it's all, you know, is your character a criminal? Like, why are you breaking out of prison? Like, you know, the world's going to be watching this. Invest in yourself so that you can hit the ground running. And I would say the most successful guy that's left WWE and turned something into it was Cody. And, you know, Cody very famously put out the list, you know, the list of guys that he wants to work. And I remember, like, looking at that tweet, you know, I pulled it up and I looked at it. I go, you know what's beautiful about that is it's not that he said where and who he's going to wrestle these people at and, you know, what company for. And it kind of created the sense of, like, you don't know where Cody's going to show up. Like, is that part of the excitement and why he was so successful? And then I started thinking about that. Okay, I want to do this politician character. How can I create that same excitement? How do I take Cody's list and make the 2024 version of that, you know? So in came in this, what I thought was a really well thought out, constructed marketing campaign. My first official free date from WWE was 12/21. So on 12/21 at 12:21 p.m., my campaign video was released. And in that campaign video, I basically told the world that I am launching a campaign to remove those in power, those in our industry that have done wrong and are unfit to be leaders. I will be removing them. And, you know, there was shots of people from TNA, from AEW, from New Japan, from GCW, just you didn't know where I was going to go. And then There was even a glimpse of a world map, and all these locations being pinged. The beauty behind the marketing concept behind that was not just the video; it was the aftermath. The video was released on 12/21 at 12:21 p.m. All of these dates that I had lined up, I instructed all of these promotions to not announce my match or my appearance at their promotion until 12/21 at 12:23 p.m. My video was exactly 2 minutes long. So again, at 12:21 at 12:21 p.m., you watch this video of Mustafa Ali saying that he's going to be everywhere. He's going to take over. And as soon as you exit that video at 12:23 and you start scrolling on Twitter, you see me at Progress. You see me at Defy. You see me at RevPro. You see me at GCW. You see me. And the thing is, now my words have been put into action, and now my words have become reality. I told you that I was going to be everywhere. And I was so proud of the way that came across because, I had basically told all these promotions very specific instructions. Guys, this is a well-thought-out marketing campaign. You have to use the hashtag Mustafa Ali 2024. You have to post at this time. And, man, it worked seamlessly because within, I forgot the exact time, but I want to say within 30 to 40 minutes, the video and the hashtag was trending worldwide. So I was like, okay, yeah, I win. And the day was mine, and think about the crop of talent that got released that day. Think about the crop of talent that's available. That day was mine, So when it comes to, I think now I've set the bar. I remember, everyone really praising Moxley's Prison Break promo when he did it, his video, and the same thing with the Cody Rhodes list. So like now, I feel like I'm in the discussion now with that. Like, oh, if you want to make a splash, like Mustafa Ali's campaign video and the marketing campaign behind it, that's the new measuring stick in the business.
In terms of the logistics of putting something like that together, I imagine it takes not just a lot of forethought, but an investment, right? I mean, like you basically shot a short film, right? So were you certain right off the bat that this is something you want to do, or because, this is going to take, I imagine, some amount of money and buy-in, do I really want to do this? It's something of a gamble.
There was so much work and so much money and so much editing that was put into this campaign. I think people worry about that when they're not sure about the idea. Again, this is an idea that's been floating in my head since 2016, and then it reappeared in 2019. Or, maybe 2019, 2020. Then it reappeared in the tail end of my run in NXT. So it's something that I constantly would fight for. It would get shut down. But then I just couldn't let it go. Because in my head, I go, how can this not work? How can people not? Because if you really take a step back, the biggest criticism that I think fans would have, if you're giving an honest criticism of Mustafa Ali, if there's no bias against it, if you're not just hating just to hate. The honest criticism is, who is Mustafa Ali and what is his, I don't want to say character because I think we've kind of evolved from that, but like, what is his presentation? Because it's all about presentation in wrestling. If you're presented as something, you then are depicted as that, and then people believe that is you. So presentation was so bad because the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you wrestle, the way you interact with people, all depends upon your presentation. And that's what I feel like was lacking from me and my former employment, was like there was no presentation behind it, So that's why, again, it was such a needed investment from me. I had to do it. And my biggest thing is, if you believe in something so bad and you want this company, wherever it is, whether it's TNA, AEW, New Japan, WWE, NOAH, whatever, you want them to spend the money on it to create this presentation. And they're like, we don't know it. If you're not willing to do it yourself, that means you truly don't believe in it. Right. I could always remember, guys having a problem with whatever creative was given to them that day, or, not liking whatever. And I like, Vince's office is right there. Go knock on the door and tell him. No, I don't want to. Because the thing is, you truly don't believe it. You truly don't believe that you're better than what was given to you that day. You're mad about it because it's not great, but you if you really believe in something, go pitch it.
Right.
So that was my big thing. Like, I really believe in this, and I'm willing to put up the money for it. No, this wasn't funded by anybody else.
Right.
I had an amazing camera guy that I worked with, but even he didn't exactly see what I wanted to see, and it came to the point where I had to basically edit the video for that specific image and then give it to him and then have him work his magic again, because it was so specific what I wanted, time cues, what shots. It was playing in my head the day I got the news that I'm no longer with WWE, So, yeah, to answer your question, the only way to do it, like, it's like walk the walk, I put up a lot of money, and I would say the biggest time consuming thing was editing the video, and then obviously orchestrating this very large campaign and working with multiple promotions. But at the end of the day, I think the investment is paid off.
You even have kind of a cast. I mean, that's also something that's different than some of the other videos you're talking about, which is usually kind of a cast of one, right? Whether it's just Mox or whatever, but you've got a crowd of people, right? So what are those your friends? What's the logistics of recruiting?
No, again, people? just marketing. Who's hot in the industry right now? Okada, Swerve.
I mean the crowd of
Kingo.
I mean the audience of people who are cheering for you and all that.
Oh yeah. I mean, no, and those are real supporters of me in real life, man. Those are real constituents. I was fortunate enough to have. I'm a Chicagoland guy, and I have a good system of Chicagoland supporters, aspiring independent wrestlers, and basically, it was a orchestrated cast. I put out a message, "Hey, I'm holding a rally here. Show up." And they showed up.
As far as the wrestlers who were in that video, another thing I thought was, well, that's pretty ballsy, and I didn't know how much. Did you give these people a heads up that you were doing this? No.
So again, a big thing about that is marketing. Okay, so how do I exponentially get exponential reach on this? I go, okay, well, I know Matt Cardona is really good with social media. So if I'm in the video, if he's in the video, he's gonna reply. So now I've taken advantage of Matt Cardona's social media because he told me to F off. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I put Vikingo in there, and everyone's like, "Oh crap! But where is he? Is he coming to Mexico? Is he wrestling?" Then they respond, and it's the same thing. So the more people you kind of poke at and take a jab, they all want to respond. So now I'm not just presenting this video to my audience, my followers. You are now promoting my video for me as well. So there was a strategic purpose behind that as well.
Yeah. No a concern there about stepping on some toes, rubbing people the wrong way. It's very presumptuous of you to put my image in that video and assume that I'd be okay with it.
I hope I stepped on plenty of toes, because what better way to make money than create conflict, right? We're in the conflict business. So I hope I stepped on some toes. I hope some people go, "Who the hell is this guy to call me out?" And then we'll have this great match, and then I'll beat them, and then I'll walk away with a huge check.
What as far as you talk about believing in this and having to put the investment in to get the return. What is success with something like that? Because some people might say, well, if you're telling me that you already signed dates with all these promotions before this video came on, then was this even necessary? I mean, you had dates lined up anyway. You're getting paid anyway. So what does success look like? What is the end game here?
So for a very long time, success was wrestling for the biggest company in the world and making the most money you can. And I know some people might roll their eyes on this because they weren't blessed enough to be in a position. Because at the end of the day, man, anyone that gets to do this is blessed, right? Like, there's people in the world that are literally being bombed right now that don't have food and water. And here we are talking about, making tons of money and chasing your dreams. So first and foremost, blessed to even have that opportunity to it. But the true success is happiness, man. I was in a position where I was being paid a lot of money to do nothing. And to some people, that's winning, right? Like, and I guess I might have been happy if I was a materialistic person. Like, if I wanted to buy a yacht, if I wanted to buy a Rolex or a Nike. Man, I'm still driving the same car that I did when I was a cop. The only place that I've put a lot of money in was my family, buying a big home so that my wife's family could also come visit and stay with us. Like, they have the best of everything, but monetary and, materialistic stuff, it does nothing for me. Don't get me wrong. The greatest feeling in the world is having someone close to you, a family member that is in need, and I'm able to go, hey, don't worry about it. I got it. Like, it's on me. That's forever the greatest feeling as far as being a father or a husband or a provider, right? But back to what success is, I was there, and I don't think I was successful because I wasn't happy. Like, I knew that there was more to be done that I could do, and I'm a creative person, and when you're not able to create, something in you, and I don't want to be dramatic here and say something in you dies, but something in you, like, is crying out for just that release, and, like, I just want to be able to create something. I see something in my head, bring it to life. So yes, this video was necessary because sure, I got a bunch of bookings and I'd have a bunch of matches, but what's the meaning behind, why am I going to Seattle? Why am I going to Paris? Why am I'm going to gain constituents. I'm going to get that state or that country's vote. I'm going to remove, whoever's in power. Everything is storyline driven, character based, and it just ties in easier now. It's like, what does a politician do when he's running for office? He hits the road. He goes to all these small towns and he talks to the people of the town. He finds out that's what I'm doing at these meet and greets. I'm meeting people, I'm shaking hands and I'm kissing babies. Like, this is the real thing. I'm doing the real thing. So all of that was instrumental, and I can honestly say I think you can hear it in my voice right now, man. I'm happy. I'm wanted. I'm in demand. I'm the hottest act in town right now. Every single show sold out. A few shows, the fire marshal showed up to shut it down, and we had to sweet talk them out. Every single meet and greet sold out. Merch tables up. So this is the first time in years I go, man, creativity, what I see in my head, people reacting to it, it's all panning out. So success is really it's happiness. And again, I know people are going to roll their eyes, but I was there, man. I was there. I was paid very, very well, and I'm forever grateful to it. I'm able to provide for my family to this day based off the money that I've earned at my time there. But I wasn't happy.
Do you think that the marketing and the promotional campaign made that much of a difference in what you've seen so far versus, you say, the show sold out, the merch was flying off the table, it's really well. Does that go differently if you just went out, you become a free agent and it's just former WWE star Mustafa Ali coming to show you, and that's it?
Because that's the thing. I think now it's not former WWE superstar Mustafa Ali. Now it's the presidential candidate, the president of pro wrestling.
You think that's the selling point? Yeah.
I'm setting myself up because this, the ex WWE superstar rub that goes away in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Now what? I had the world's attention on December 21st. So why do I just want to say, hey brother, come into a town near you? And it dies off in a few months. I am now an established act. I'm the most in-demand act, and it's all attributed to that video and the marketing campaign. And if I had not done it, I don't think you'd be calling me for this interview right now, to be honest with you.
No, it's absolutely a fair point. As far as the political overtones, all that stuff, I do want to get kind of in your head a little bit out there, because you see from your social media, even before these came out, that I don't know if it's politics, but you're a guy with something to say, with feelings on world events. So, I mean, did this just feel like the right character at the right time, kind of given the state of politics now, how divided everything is, entering a big election year? Talk about the timing for this right now.
So the reason for this character had nothing to do with what's going on in the real world. And I think there's a fine line, a very fine line, when it comes to taking what happens in the real world and bringing it into entertainment. I would never want to use tragedy, hate, terror, anything like that to kind of take advantage to create a story and entertain. Even if it's beneficial to raise awareness, to me, it's just kind of tacky. Again, this character has the political nuances: Secret Service, the tie, the emblem, flag, the way I talk, the presentation. I'm running for office to become the president of professional wrestling because there's no one better to lead this generation than me. I have the knowledge, I have the skill set, but more importantly, there's a lot of great men in our industry, but a lot of them aren't good men. I'm a good man. I have morals. I have ethics. This is what the character is based on. To take anything that's happening in the real world, again, I think it's just tacky. There's a fine line. When I'm raising awareness about issues that I'm concerned about, that's just Adil Alam as a human being. Like, people shouldn't be bombed.
Yeah.
Kids shouldn't be dying. There shouldn't be people starving in the world. I'm concerned about issues in Palestine. I'm concerned about issues in the Congo. I'm concerned about issues in China. Like, if humans are suffering, that's not good. If people are being discriminated against or held down because of their religious beliefs or their sexual orientation, that's not good. And I'll speak on that because that's who I am as a person. I personally won't tie the two together. Like, you won't see a wrestling presentation of me speaking about something because I believe, again, it'd be very cheap of me to do that. But I do have a platform. I do have a huge following. I do have a responsibility, I feel like, as a human being with this platform, to raise awareness for issues that, are not just social issues, just like the right thing. We're human beings at the end of the day. So, yes, I would say that I'm an active voice, but you'll never see me kind of mix the two.
Yeah, yeah. In as much as this character, and not to simplify it too much to say it's a bad guy or a good guy, but there are traits, it seems, from this character of kind of smarminess, arrogance, cockiness, big-headed, that sort of thing. Is that what you see in politicians? I mean, is this saying something about what you think of politicians?
Oh, sir, with that, well, I'll have to. I find your choice of words quite offensive. I'm not arrogant. Why is someone arrogant when they're confident in what they say? If I tell you 2 + 2 is 4, am I arrogant or am I just right? So what I'm saying is the truth. And based off the sold out crowds and the merch lines and the meet and greets and record breaking attendance, I'd say what I'm saying is resonating with the people. So I will gladly dismiss your insult. I would say that there's a lack of knowledge, kind sir. But no, this isn't a representation of anyone. This is who I truly am. I'm a bit of a strange character in the sense of I've never been one to really have my thumb on like pop culture. Like I've never been to a concert. I very rarely go to movies. Like I had to get dragged. But what's always I find fascinating and entertaining was documentaries about people that have risen to power or very affluent figures. Like I'll watch a documentary about Malcolm X. I'll watch a documentary about how did the Black Panthers get created. I'll watch documentaries about MLK, JFK. I find how the rise to power fascinating. But I think that's why you kind of see so many nuances in this character. But you're not going to see me dance and sing. Like, it's kind of not like who I truly am. Right? Like that's me putting up a front. So what you see on stage, the way I'm being presented, I mean, according to you, arrogant. I just think very, 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 very confident. So what you're seeing is no reflection. It's just me being who I truly want to be. I want to be a figure for the people in this industry that I love so much.
Yeah. So you're coming off of working in one company exclusively for a number of years now. Obviously this is something very different with all the dates with different companies. Do you hope to eventually settle down somewhere? What are the pros and cons of continuing kind of playing the field versus having one home?
I think I did the having one home thing for so long that it might take me a bit to get ready to do that, potentially, right? But at the end of the day, as any politician knows, campaign funding is crucial. And I will continue to go where proper campaign funding is provided. As far as, again, settling down, I like to consider it as I just got out of a long-term relationship. I'd like to see what's available out there. So maybe we go on a few dates, hang out and see where things take us. But I don't have any long-term commitment or any long-term plans with that. I feel like the marketing campaign was so successful that the inquiries and the requests continue to come in. I'm booked well into the late of this year already. So I'm not getting my foot off the gas pedal, but the need to go out and get work is no longer there. It's coming to me. And then when I don't want to say bored, but, when I've kind of had my fun with this, then I'll take, maybe settling down with one promotion a little bit more seriously. But right now, it's every weekend, every night, sold out houses, amazing matches, and I'm having the time of my life.
Those sold out houses, I imagine, are smaller than what you might have been used to working in WWE. What are the differences there? Going out in front of maybe a packed place that has 500 fans or 1,000 fans versus working in an arena or even a stadium that is packed.
So the stadium effect, the arena effect for performing with WWE, the effect that you think you would have, it goes away when you quickly realize that no one there is really there to see you.
They didn't come to see you.
When you walk in and the posters, you're not on the posters, you don't have a marquee match. Maybe you were thrown on last minute. Not to say you don't go out there and work hard, but the nerves and the excitement kind of goes away. And again, this isn't meant to sound bitter or angry. It was just a reality of the situation. Towards the tail end of my career, I really, truly realized that there's no connection between me and the fans. I'll go out there and have a great match, and people will be like, hey, great match. But they're not here to see me that night.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look out. Maybe I see one T-shirt. Maybe I see one sign. So the anxiety and the nerves of like, oh man, like people are here to see me, that's completely gone. You go out there, you do your job, and then you leave.
Yeah.
The thrill kind of goes away. These smaller shows, I'm on the poster, and people will always, he's at a smaller location. Yeah, we sold that place out in 25 minutes. In one day, it's a record break. They maybe more when it came, but this is all that and I'm not lying to you. I think it was C4 Wrestling. Fire Marshal showed up. We have to shut this thing down. You guys are 150 over capacity. That's a great feeling. I'm the marquee match. I'm the main event. I'm on the poster. When I come out, people are like, yes. Oh, they're wearing my T-shirt. I'm telling you right now, I have more anxiety and more excitement about these matches than these arena matches. And that's the honest truth, because again, when you come out there and you go, does anybody really see me? If I wasn't on this pay-per-view, or if I wasn't on this, would anyone really, care or notice? But on these shows, they will, because they came to see me. So yeah, there's a huge difference and a huge level of excitement, and I know that's not the standard answer people would kind of expect. Initially in my career, yeah, it was very daunting. It was very, holy crap, there's 20,000 people here, or there's 10,000 people here. Towards the tail end, it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's a difference between just kind of being part of an ensemble cast versus being the star of the show. Yeah.
Right.
As far as coming out with this character, the first time that you do it, and now people have seen the videos, or maybe you don't know how much people have seen the videos, but now it's time to actually deliver with this. So you come through the curtains. Was there a concern, or was that sort of the final proving ground, the real kind of like focus group? Like, is this working? What was that like?
Oh, yeah. So that's definitely, one of the big reasons why I've decided to hit the indies before possibly settling down anywhere was maybe like a proof of concept run. Like, right. How do people adapt to this? When I put my hand over my heart and I say, "In Ali we trust," are they going to say it back? Like, do they get it? What do they think about the merge? These meet and greets are great because people are coming up to me. And the first thing, man, I would vote for you. You're my president. So, like, every single town, Paris, Corpus Christi, Texas, LA, Ottawa, Toronto, Quebec. These are different towns. Like, what people say in Quebec isn't the same as Corpus Christi, but they're all saying the same thing. And I go, okay, I've got something here. Oh, like, hey, did you have any these Vote for Ali pins sold out in one day? I need to order more. Great. Okay, people understand the concept of a candidate running for office, because that's what the best thing that you can do in wrestling is, right? Take something that people can understand, that they can physically see, and they go, oh, okay, I get it. He's a politician, or he's a candidate, whatever, And now everything's adapted to that. So I'm very, very thankful that I could do this initial indie run, because the proof of concept's there.
Yeah. When you talk about people like Cody or others who left WWE, kind of proved that they were more than they were presented there, and became big stars. With so many of them, the story ends with them back in WWE and worth more and appreciated more. Certainly that's the case with Cody, or you look at Drew or so many other guys, Punk even. So not that that's on your mind, but even in the distance, I mean, is there some part of you that stick it to WWE is not the right word, but wants to prove something to people over there, that they missed out on something?
It's not that I want to prove anything to WWE, because WWE is very aware of what they do, and this is like my love letter to the fans and to those that think they know but might not know. The professional wrestling industry, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it, is loaded with amazing talent. We would tune in, and we would see someone and go, oh, this guy's not charismatic. He doesn't have the it factor. Did you see that promo? He sounded so weird. That promo was probably shot 4 or 5 times. And that said talent probably showed a bunch of charisma. It was kind of bouncing off the wall. It was very, very attention-seeking, and you couldn't help it. But the writers and the producers of that promo don't want the attention on that guy. They want it on someone else. So they're telling that talent, hey, you got to tone it down. You got to be a little bit more monotone. And then eventually telling that talent, this promo is really not about you. It's about the other guy. Okay. So my big kind of like plea to people is to understand that there are very, very talented individuals. But what it comes down to, and it's the first thing I said in this interview, it's all about presentation. It's about the music, the cadence, the way they shoot you. Do they shoot you up tight and close, or do they shoot you from a million miles away to make you look as small as possible? It's all about presentation. And WWE knows that. I think WWE knows exactly how talented I am, how capable I am. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and they have to make a decision. They have to pick only a few. Every single person can't be a champion. Every single person can't be a main event. You need a supporting cast. You need a few guys that do these utility jobs really well. And I was a guy that was very well-rounded in every aspect, and they found me to be a really valuable utility player for 6-7 years. Great. And they paid me accordingly, very, very handsomely. Great. Again, it's all about presentation. So when I go out and I inevitably become this huge success, because I know I will, it's not going to shock anyone in WWE. They're going to be like, yeah, we always knew he had it in them. But again, there's a lot of people within WWE that are extremely talented, but the presentation has to be selective. And that's all it is. So now this theory that I just gave you about presentation, I'm going to prove it. I present myself as a star wherever I go. Special entrances, amazing music, the best gear. You will not see a cell phone promo from me ever. Every time I do a promo, it's in the studio with the proper camera equipment, with the proper camera crew. Even if I have to front the bill, that's fine, because that is more valuable and important. It's presentation. So that's my big spiel. You're not proving anybody wrong, but I was there, man. They talked to me, they've asked me, they put the ball in my hand to carry people through matches. They know exactly who I am and how talented I am. But at the end of the day, decisions have to be made, and it's their business, and obviously they're doing amazing business, and they're doing very, very, very well. And it's because of these strategic decisions they made. But that's my big spiel to the world, the guys.
Yeah.
The guy that you think isn't that good, that doesn't have great charisma or is boring, probably because they asked him to be.
Right.
A little.
Yeah.
Hey, can you tone it down a little bit because the attention has to go on this person.
What's so interesting is that like your vision for what would be successful in wrestling and in sports entertainment sounds very much in line with WWE's presentation of stuff, right? I mean, it sounds like you'd be on the same page about a lot of this stuff. So, I mean, do you wonder how this character that you're putting together, how it does on the WWE stage with, their resources and if they could buy in, how well this could work on that stage?
So everything that I'm implementing, and I was always a good wrestler, and then I went to WWE and I became a great wrestler, right? I became a great performer. I've learned so much from my time there, and how could you not? With the talent that's there, the production crew that's there, the way you shoot things. No, I don't wonder at all, because during my time in WWE, so this is my like kind of like the last thing I really kind of want to mention about like my time with WWE is other wrestlers from the past that got released. I would call them and I would check in on them, and then I'm sorry to hear you got released. And the number one thing that they all said is the only reason they're a little depressed or they're a little angry and they're a little bitter is that they wish that they tried a little harder, that they fought a little harder, that they really fought for what they believed in. I, on the other hand, am not bitter at all. I'm not angry. I'm not, especially at myself. I can look in the mirror and know that I tried everything. I knocked on every door. I talked to every person from Vince to Hunter to Bruce to Paul. Anyone that went to Kevin Dunn. There's guys that have never met Kevin Dunn, and I walked right into Kevin Dunn's office with that idea. I know that I presented, carried myself, pitched, and fought for every single thing, and it didn't happen. So there's some solace that comes with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I went down swinging. I didn't just stand there and take it. I didn't. I wish I wish I pitched anything that I could do from top to bottom. I pitched. So there's a lot of acceptance and okay, it didn't work out. I tried really, really hard.
Right.
And that's okay. Again, decisions were made to go certain directions. Okay. I can't control that. Right. All I can do is I control how I present myself, what kind of things I do present, and that's it.
You put
during
your
my
best
time
foot
with
forward.
WWE. So yeah, I have I wonder how this will work. No, man, I'm focused on the now. I'm focused on myself. I'm focused on how can I, and it's a genuine goal. It's not a cheesy thing. I'm trying to impart a lot of this knowledge onto the independent wrestling scene. Guys, we all have to step up our game. The cell phone promo, I'll see you Saturday night at the Coliseum, brother. It doesn't work anymore. Let's create stories. Let's create moments. Let's create tension. Because at the end of the day, why do they want to see us fight? Why do they want to see us perform? It's the why that matters. And that's kind of like the message I'm trying to bring as I go to this independent circuit, like the business behind it, the marketing behind it, all that good stuff.
Let me ask you more on that point, because I imagine some independent wrestlers who've never had a national television exposure might say, well, this is all easy for you to say. I mean, you go on Instagram and you already have this big following from being on television, and maybe you made a little more money than others, so you've got some of the money to invest in this production. But what can be extracted from your experience? What lessons can be learned from yours, even to the lowest level indie wrestler kind of getting started, living at home? What can he take from what you have to teach?
So the example you gave is it's like me not listening to a TED Talk from someone that's super successful and and is an amazing athlete that I could never be, or whatever attributes they have that are above me, right? I would still listen to the TED Talk because I want to know what did he do to figure it out?
Right.
Like, sure, maybe he had the money to invest in himself to do this, and then he had this huge platform. But the concept and the idea was still, listen, I have close to, like, let's say I have close to 1 million followers on Instagram. If the idea sucks, it still sucks. It doesn't matter what the audience is. If something's crap, people are going to be like, this is crap, and it's not going to work. The big message is, sure, you're not in my situation. Yes, I do have a quote unquote advantage of with the platform that I have and with the money that I've gained. Sure, but mind you, when I was 16 years old and I started out in the industry, I was in the exact same position as you. I was also working 2-3 jobs. I was a police officer working midnight shifts that would go to independent wrestling shows at 9 o'clock, have a match, jump in my car, go straight to work, and then work the midnight shift till 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, you know? So I know all about the grind. But I would still listen to someone that's been in locker rooms with, you know, the top of the top of the top of the industry and has imparted knowledge on to me. I would still listen to that person because, okay, he told me 7 things that aren't applicable to me. But that 8th thing, I can kind of inspire an idea off of that, and I can do this. So, yeah, no, I'm not saying, rent out these huge studios and rent out these huge cameras and spend all this money. Like, but do you have a group of friends, and can you create a scenario, a short film about your promo rather than just this Saturday, you and me one-on-one? You know what I mean?
Right.
At least you go, I'm taking the Mustafa Ali approach and creating these short films to develop this character. And then who knows from that, maybe you find a character or a niche or a storyline or a catchphrase, and that catches on. My whole thing is it's experimentation, right? I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just trying to get you to think a little differently.
Yeah, yeah. Would you be happy if this was your legacy in wrestling? I mean, beyond having worn this title or headlined this show, that you created sort of a template for other wrestlers to follow to find their own success?
I think like most things in wrestling, it'll get kind of like moved on. Like, again, you know, Marks did it, but Cody did it. You know, I think I'm like the new version of it. I don't know if that's my legacy. I think the real legacy for me is you've never had someone like me with my name and my background be presented other than a stereotypical role. You know, like, I'm one of the first guys to kind of be presented in a positive manner and not play a stereotypical role. And I know there's a few other people in the industry that are of the same faith as mine, but they don't look like the stereotypical role, you know, like, and I'm not, you know, this, I hope this isn't taken out of context, but, like, you know, I've had conversations with Sami Zayn about this. Him and I are of the same faith, but he's like, you know, and I, you know, we would talk about, you know, biases and these stereotypical roles. And Sammy would look at me and he goes, yeah, but I never got it because I don't look like you, though. You know, when you look at me, I look like a white guy with red hair. He's like, I was never treated any differently because people don't look at me. And he goes, but you did. You got treated differently. You got cast in certain roles, and you weren't allowed to do certain roles because of how you look. So with that, there's a lot of sense that I've kind of knocked down the door with that to show that it is possible, that people, I believe, in reality, when you watch wrestling, I think people truly don't care where you're from or what you look like. They just want to be entertained. And I wanted to be an example of that to my community and even people outside of my community, because my big message is it doesn't matter who you are or, you know, who you are or where you're from or what you look like. All that matters is your performance. That's what it should be. So anyone that's ever felt like that they've been denied because of, you know, what they look like or what they believe in or what their sexual orientation is, what disabilities they have, I want them to be inspired by me. I want them to, you know, resonate with me. This isn't meant to be just for my community or it's meant to be for anyone that I identify. Because for a long time, that's been my, you know, my biggest enemy, the biggest mountain to climb is I've always felt that, like, where I'm from and my name is has been a disadvantage, and I've kind of, I feel like finally defeated it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is a really fascinating, inspirational story. Yeah, and it feels like more than just your success is riding on this, right? In as much as like what a great story, what a great template for other wrestlers. If this can work as well as you want it to work, you expect it to work, that could really change things. So excellent, man. Thank you so much. This was a real pleasure.